Today I'm going to prove to you that you don't need to pack so much gear that your overlanding rig weighs more than a Sherman tank. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. If you're new here, my name is Tyler, and today we're talking about the gear obsession in the overlanding space. This is a rapidly growing industry, and they want you to believe that you need to pack everything and anything in order to go out for a week or even a weekend. This lie is being pushed across the entire community, and there's forums everywhere of people asking what gear they need, what's the best overlanding table, all the recovery gear, you name it, and people's vehicles are just full. They're finding any space anywhere and packing it with gear, even if they never touch it the entire trip. It's actually gotten to the point that on Epic Adventure Outfitters podcast, they did a whole episode on people overloading their vehicles. Now, the main reason for me making this video is a few months ago, I had someone comment on one of my videos, and they were asking me to do an interior walkthrough on the Jeep and kind of show off how I have the inside sit up. And at the time, I didn't want to make the video because it was like, I felt like it wasn't finished, it wasn't good enough, it wasn't the YouTube status quo of what the interior of an overlanding rig should look like. And so I just kind of brushed it off and didn't make it. Fast forward to August, I actually went out on a 10-day trip and lived out of my Jeep for 10 days. I'll link the video up here, you can go watch it. Anyways, long story short, once I finished up that trip, I realized that the inside of my Jeep, even though it's basic, it actually suited my needs extremely well for living out of it for 10 days. I probably could have went a lot longer if I wanted to. So you don't need to have all the fancy floor deletes and the most expensive stuff to make it work. And I'm gonna prove that to you. So we're gonna start at the front of the Jeep and we're gonna work our way to the back. I'm gonna cover everything from recovery to sleeping to cooking. It's kind of the three big elements, in my opinion, of overlanding. Get home safe, have somewhere good to sleep, and be able to actually cook yourself some meals. So we'll start at the front. All right, this is gonna be kind of the basics for recovery, in my opinion, for going on the trip. You don't need some whole massive $1,200 recovery kit in order to go out overlanding for the weekend, off-roading, exploring, whatever your plans are. All you simply need is a winch. This winch actually was given to me by Sean from the Story Till Now.
Trail Wrecker winch. It's yours now, so you can be the pullout king.
So if you're watching this, Sean, I really appreciate it. It saved me and Colin a lot in the last couple months. My last winch gave out on me when I was stuck down next to the river. It was a bad night. You can go find that video down below. It's me wheeling up a waterfall. But other than that, from a winch, good tree saver, nice big thick rope. I don't know what this one's rated for, but I have one that's at least rated for like 20,000 pounds, so you can give it a tug if someone's stuck in a mud hole and don't want to pull out the winch line. And other than that, I got a good shackle. You never know when these can come in handy. But with those two things, you should be able to get out of most situations. Maybe you could have a little snatch block. You can get one of those, just those snatch block rings. I'll put a quick photo on the screen. We've used those before. They've worked fantastic and helped us kind of like pull off to the side. But all in all, for self-recovery, this will do the trick. All right, next on the list is sleeping. So when I actually first started going out on overnight trips, I was just sleeping in the back of the Jeep and then stuffing all my gear into the front. It was extremely inconvenient. So instead of buying a brand new rooftop tent, I actually went on Marketplace and I found this one that was used. So I saved about $2,000 right from the get-go. The gentleman used it for a single season and decided to switch over to a van. So I got a good deal on it. And when I go out, I'll actually have just my blanket, sleeping bag, pillow stuffed in behind the seat here. Just a roof nest condor tent. Stuff everything up there. I got a little power brick to turn the LEDs on. Other than that, that's my sleeping setup. And now we're gonna get into kind of the main portion of where you would live out of on a trip. And this is my main overlanding setup back here. All right, to start off, we're gonna talk about refrigeration. Originally, when I was going out on my weekend trips, I was running a Pelican cooler that I was borrowing from a family member. And it would be good for a weekend, but if you were to try to push it any further, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do that on week-long trips. So I bought this fridge off of Colin. It's an Iceco APL 55-liter fridge. And honestly, it's been awesome. Keeps my food cold. I don't get wet food from ice melting, and it's just enough space for myself to go out on a 10-day long trip and have enough to replenish in between stops in town or wherever we can find more food. Now, for any gear like this, you don't need to break the bank. You don't got to go buy a brand new fridge. You can find many of these on Facebook Marketplace or on any of your used pages, because people get into the hobby and then they fall out of the hobby and they'll use it a handful of times and they just won't need it anymore. So find yourself a deal. Don't waste your money on a brand new cooler if you don't have to. They work well. Next up on my agenda is cooking. So I personally bring this old Coleman stove, and it works fantastic. Honestly, any stove will do. You don't need to go buy the newest, fanciest, biggest stove unless you have a large family. Then I might get a bigger stove, but for myself, me and my girlfriend, this is more than adequate. It's just a little 2-burner. Does everything I need to do. Put that to the side. And inside of this nice container here, this is pretty much my whole kitchen setup. Pull this out. Now inside of my small camp kitchen, I have a singular knife, cutting veggies, whatever I need. This is what I actually used to cook on before I had my Coleman stove. It's just a little MSR single burner. You put on one of these gas butane cans, and that's how I made my coffee and cooked anything on the frying pan before I had my setup. I got a basic 2-person first aid kit. I do eventually want to upgrade to a full-on trauma kit, but for now, this does the job. Any cuts and anything. Other than that, a very basic coffee percolator does the trick. You can find these relatively cheap. Some instant coffee if I'm feeling lazy. A little bit of olive oil for my frying pan. Spatula. A small portable shovel. I don't know why that's actually in there. It seemed like a good spot for it. I'm going to move that right now. Kettle. Buried under here, I have a water filtration pump to fill up my reservoir in case I run out. A little bit of coffee grounds and 2 bowls just for cereal or whatever I want to eat. Now, along with my basic kitchen setup, I also carry just a small cutting board, and I just have a small cast iron skillet for just cooking anything I want on. It works well. And my solution for water is one of these Dometic 18-liter tanks, and I have the Dometic faucet to go with it, so I can just pump out the water I need. It's simple, it's easy. Now, before I had this, I used to actually carry the 2-liter plastic bottles. I just had a couple of them stuffed behind the seat. It worked well. I just wanted to preserve water for longer trips. So this has done the trick. It's relatively cheap, relatively simple, but I don't have some giant water tank stuffed in the Jeep somewhere. 18 liters is just enough water to get by until you can find somewhere to fill it back up. Now, it honestly actually all packs in here very nicely. Just have a small little fold-up camping chair that you see right here. I was sitting in earlier. Just collapses down and I stick it right in here. Fits nicely. As far as airing back up after my trips, I am using a VI Air single pump. It's not your typical an ARB twin pump with a whole Kraken setup. To air all 4 up at once, I do it one at a time. It's all I can afford. Yeah, I don't got any big shelving in here. Nothing wild, no seat delete, no floor delete, just basic little setup, and I lived in this for 10 days. And powering my fridge, if we come around to the other side of the Jeep here, I'm running a Jackery 800 to power the fridge. And that's essentially my entire setup. It's not very complicated. It's not very expensive. This is probably the cheapest setup, and it worked out great for 10 days in the bush. So don't buy the industry lie thinking that you need goose gear, seat deletes, and shelving units, and a whole power system, and solar panels, and the newest best tent, and brand new fridges, and a full-on kitchen, and water tanks. We could go on for hours. You don't need all of it. You simply need a basic setup, be able to feed yourself, hydrate yourself, somewhere to sleep, and you can honestly go out and enjoy the nature and get away from it all. A lot of the places that I go, you don't even need even 35s. 35s is kind of the bare minimum tire I want to run on this Jeep in specific, but I've had Jeeps in the past with 32-inch tires, and I took that Jeep everywhere. So you don't need 40s, you don't need 1-tons, you don't even need a Rubicon. You can get away with no lockers, get out and explore, and do it relatively cheap. So if you haven't already subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you'd do so. And if you want to see me living out of this Jeep with this setup for 10 days, exploring some of the most beautiful places in the province, I'll link a video right here, and I hope to see you in that video. I also carry a frying pan, a frying pan.